We'll be going over System TES, Talmud Eser Sefirot, Part 1, Tzimtzum Restriction, and Kav Line. We're going over Inner Reflection, Chapter 8. First, we'll go over some concepts. So, whenever we deal with any of the material Kabbalah, we always go over the rules to understand Talmud Eser Sefirot. And there are three rules. One is unnecessary, which means that we normally, when we're reading any Kabbalah material, we think it's talking about reality, but it's not. It's talking about perception, and that's how we make it necessary for our advancement. So we could read it as if it's talking about reality, but it won't help us advance. We need to understand it's talking about our perceptions. It states a perception we're going to go through. And then we have the second restriction, which is called impossible. It's when we think that it's talking about the past, that when we're reading, for example, Talmud Eser Sefirot, that we think it's talking about what happened before we were born. And the idea is that we make it possible by understanding that it's talking about the future. It states we go through from when we're born until the end of correction. And then finally, secrets is when we think it's talking about others, a creature or the souls of somebody else, and we disclose it to ourselves by understanding that it's talking about ourselves. So it states a perception that we go through in the future, and it's we who go through them in the future. And we have here the phases that we go through from when we're physically born until we cross the barrier. We go through 4 phases. The first phase is called humanity. The second phase is called spiritual society. The third phase is called the group. And finally, the fourth phase before we cross the barrier is called individual. And in each phase, we have sub-phases. So we have 1.1, unformed humanity, which are base desires for food, sex, and family. We have 1.2, chaos humanity, which are business desires, money, honor, and knowledge. We have a difference here where we get the passive point in the heart, which moves us into 1.3, darkness humanity, which is religion and mysticism. We have 1.4, spiritual humanity, is when we start learning Kabbalah. Then we reach the spiritual society. So we have 2.1, unformed society, which is connection. We have 2.2, chaos society, which is mutual guarantee. Then we get our active point in the heart. And we reach 2.3, darkness society, which is the societal limitation, the obstinance desires. Then we have 2.4, spirit society, where we start cleaning concepts. Then we reach the group phase, 3.1, the unformed group, where we have the correct goal of becoming the creator. We have focus on it. And we have 3.2, chaos group, where we take those intellectual concepts that we've cleaned and make them emotional. So it's emotional concepts. Then we get our intense point in the heart, and we reach 3.3, the darkness group, where we deal with our pain point, which depending on our class, we get to feel it in our emotion. Then we reach 3.4, spirit group, is where we reach anticipation, that we're going to be crossing the barrier when we grow our ego. And then we reach 4.1, an individual phase, which is unformed individual, which are doubts. When we have doubts about the path, then we have 4.2, chaos individual, where we take responsibility for the will to receive, that we see even in our reality. 4.3, darkness individuals, where we understand we don't actually have bestowal. We thought we had bestowal because we had actions of bestowal. The idea is to go to states of bestowal. So we feel vulnerable that we don't actually have the quality, but what that does is build a desire in us to actually want the quality. And then we reach 4.4, the spiritual individual, which is where at the end of it we reach that excitement, that elevated state, and then we cross the barrier and we feel emptiness. אני לא יודע, תעלי למעלה, אני בהקלטה. Then we have reality versus perception. The idea is that normally when we learn the material, we learn it that we go from Ein Sof all the way down to this world, right, where it's talking about reality. But we're learning it as perception, so we learn that we actually go from boundless light to this world. So the end of this world is actually the end of correction. So the idea is that we learn Talmud Eser Sefirot as the states we're going through, not the states that happened before. Righteous versus wicked. So the idea is that why do we even have to go through this process? We're going through this process because we have a misalignment between what we desire and what reality is giving us. So when reality gives us a situation of tension, so it's a spiritual perception power, which normally comes as tension. We feel it, we're expecting from it some kind of corporeal feeling, which is a physical reality feeling. And because there's a misconsistency between it, that's why we don't feel it as good, and therefore it's called that we're wicked, because we're not justifying reality. And sometimes we get filling, which is physical reality filling, and we're expecting it to fill a spiritual perception power deficiency. So for example, drugs, alcohol, food, sex, all these different things that we try to fill that empty void within us, but we're trying to use a corporeal filling to do so, instead of trying to use situations of tension and gain discernment on them and convert them into power. And that's what we do. We're in the righteous phase, where when we get filling, we have filling. So when I'm eating food, even after the barrier, it fills me as corporal filling would do. But when I have the situation of tension, I collect discernments on it and convert that tension into power.
What's the difference between incomplete and complete righteous?
So it is incomplete righteous. You're still doing that misattributing the corporal filling with the spiritual filling, and the corporal vessels with the spiritual vessels. So complete righteous is when you're no longer making that mistake. That when you receive tension, you know it's a desire for more power, and when you're receiving filling, you understand it's a filling.
And that is after the parsa that the person becomes complete righteous?
It's a phases. So after the parsa, you start that complete righteous phase, and you reach the end of it at end of correction. Chapter 8. Light and water. Chachma, wisdom, is called or, light, and Chasadim, mercy, is called Maim, water. Bina, understanding, is called Maim Elyonim, upper waters, and Malchut, kingdom, is called Maim Tachtonim, lower waters. 29. Now we shall explain the meaning of the 4 Bechinot discernments of cause and consequence necessary to complete the tzura form of the world to receive. It is written, the waters were conceived and begotten in darkness. It means that there are 2 Bechinot discernments of or, light, in Atzilut. The first Bechina discernment is called or, light, namely or Chochmah, light of wisdom. And the second Bechina discernment is called Maim, water, which is Chasadim, kindness. The first Bechina discernment extends from above downwards without any assistance from the lower one. The second Bechina discernment extends with the help of the inferior, hence the name Maim, water, for it is the nature of the or, light, to be above, and the nature of Maim, water, to dwell below. There are also 2 Bechinot discernments within the Maim, water. Upper Maim, water, by Bechina Bet, second discernment, in the 4 Bechinot discernments, and lower Maim, water, by Bechina Dalet, 4th discernment, in the 4 Bechinot discernments. So what this is doing, it's using the analogy of light and water to talk about the 4 phases of direct light. So the idea is that phase 1 and phase 3, because you're basically put in them without your choice, it's called light, so the light comes from above. And phase 2 and phase 4, which come from your choice, they're called water because they come from below, they come from the desire of a person. So the idea is that if you remember, when you're born in reality, no one told you, you didn't have a choice about it, so it's considered a phase of light. Then when you decide to go to a spiritual society, you do that on your own accord, and therefore it's considered water. It's called upper waters. Since you're still going, but you're doing so, even though you're going, you're doing a bit unconsciously, not really sure where you're going to, and therefore it's called upper waters, because you're still dependent on the upper. And then you've got phase 3, which is also called light, because you basically reach a point where you're suffering in this spiritual society, and it's not giving you what you need, so you're basically forced to go into a group phase. So there's no choice in your matter. But then phase 4 is called low waters, since you're doing on your own accord, you're choosing to desire it, and you have got conscious choice of it. And therefore it's called low waters because it's dependent on you as the lower, and also it requires acceptance and awareness from you. So these are just the 4 phases, and it's going over them in that kind of idea. From potential to actual. Explanation of Hitpashtut, expansion, or Ein Sof, boundless light, into the 4 Bechinot discernments in order to uncover the Kli vessel, which is the will to receive. Number 30. For that reason, any Pashtut expansion of Or Ein Sof, boundless light, consists of Eser Sefirot, 10 emanations. It is because the Ein Sof, boundless light, which is the Shoresh root in the Matzil, emanator, is called Keter, crown. The Or, light, of the Pashtut expansion itself is called Chochmah, wisdom, being the entire measure of the Pashtut expansion of the Or light from above, from Ein Sof boundless. It has already been said that the will to receive is incorporated in every Pashtut expansion of Or light from above. However, the Tzura form of the Ratzon desire does not actually become apparent before the desire to extend Or light awakens in the Ne'etzal emanated, more than the measure of his Pashtut expansion. Thus, because the potential will to receive is incorporated immediately in the Or light of the Pashtut expansion, the Or light is compelled to bring the potential to the actual. Consequently, the Or light awakens to extend additional Shefa abundance, more than the measure of its Pashtut expansion from Ein Sof boundless. It is in that Or light that the will to receive actually appears and acquires the new form, in Shunu Tzora, change of form, that makes it darker than the Or light, for it has gained Aviyut, coarseness, by the Chidush Tzora, renewal of form. So what this is talking about, it's talking about basically phase 1 and phase 2. So in phase 1, the idea is that the will to receive is automatically created from the crown. So you've got the crown, which is the root phase. Then you've got phase 1. And because the crown, the Keter phase, wants to bestow, it needs something to bestow to. So it creates a will to receive to bestow to. And that's phase 1. And because there's no actual desire needed from the will to receive itself, rather it's just the amount that was given from the root. Right? So the idea is it's called potential. When it actualizes it, when it gets a passive point in the heart, that's when it awakens to extend additional abundance. It wants to become more than what it was made. It wants to actually become like the Creator. So it doesn't want just to be a person who receives from the Creator. It really wants to change itself to become like the Creator. And that actually makes it darker because it's growing more coarseness, since it wants to be more than it actually is. Phase 2. This part that has become more of coarse is called Bina, understanding. As in the verse, I am understanding Bina, power, Gevura, is mine. Indeed, Bina, understanding, is a part of Chochmah, wisdom, meaning the very aura light of its Pashtut expansion, Ein Sof boundless. However, because she increased her Ratzon desire and drew more Shefa abundance than the measure of her Pashtut expansion in Ein Sof boundless, she thus acquired Shinu Tzora, change of form, and grew a little more of course than the aura light. In that manner, she acquired her own name, namely the Sefirah emanation of Bina, understanding. The essence of the additional Shefa abundance that she extended from Ein Sof boundless by the power of her Gabrut, overcoming, of Ratzon, desire, is called Or Chasadim, light of mercy, or Apamayim, water. That is because this aura light does not extend directly from Or Ein Sof boundless light, like Or Chochmah, light of wisdom. Instead, it is assisted by the Ne'etzal emanated, who intensify the Ratzon desire, consequently acquiring a separate name, Or Chasadim, light of mercy, or Mayim, water. Now you find that the Sefirah emanation of Bina, understanding, consists of 3 features of Or light. The first, Or Atzmut, light of essence, of Bina, understanding, which is the part of the Or Chochmah, light of wisdom. The second is the Itbatut, the thickening, and the Shinu Tzora, change of formula, acquired by the intensification of the Ratzon desire. The third is the Or Chasadim, light of mercy, that came to her through her own Hamshacha, attraction from Ein Sof boundless. So this is talking about when we come to the spiritual society. We've got a point in the heart that is taken the light from potential to actuality, and then we reach phase 2, which is the spiritual society. We've actually more coarse than phase 1. And because of that change of form, not only do we feel more pain, because of that change of form from the light, but we want equivalence of form, which is what the light of mercy is all about. So Or Chasadim, light of mercy, is about trying to bestow, which before the barrier is trying to bestow to people, trying to make them feel better, or to give them the wisdom of Kabbalah. That's all considered the light of mercy before the barrier, where you want to bestow like the Creator. So you want to bestow in the quality of reception. Like we said, it's upper water because water means that there's a desire from the person, and upper because it's still in the control of the creator.
Sakai, and why weren't we created in our Gamartikun state? Like, why weren't we created with both our creator nature and our ego?
Well, the idea is to be aware of it, and the idea is to be aware of something, you have to go through the opposite state first. So if you were created with everything, then you basically have nothing. Because only by discerning the opposite of something do you actually know something. It's like you only feel enjoyment of sitting on a chair when you feel the lack of it. And if you just sit on a chair normally, you don't feel any enjoyment from actually sitting. So the idea is that we get to go through all the phases for two reasons. One, we can help others go through it, right? Because we're going through it as well. And plus we get actually understanding of the process. And the idea is that every perfection requires a process before it. The process increases the perfection of it. It's like when people which are successful tell their story, how they went from rags to riches, it increases the enjoyment of where they are at the end.
So basically, if we were created in Gamartikun, we would not like we wouldn't feel the difference between light and darkness, and we
Yes.
wouldn't enjoy it.
And also we would just use it in a passive manner. One of the ideas is that when we read End of Perfection, we're going to be using it in an active manner. It's not just going to be filling. It's going to be power. And to be something active, you have to have the passive part beforehand, and you need to feel a need for it. So the idea is that if we were just created like that, we would just be basking in the light in a passive manner, and there wouldn't be any actual use of power.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the difference between religion and phase 2. And I realize religion is about outward actions, and phase 2 is about bestowal, even though a bestowal as in, I'm not sure what the definition for bestowal is in phase 2, but the annulling, the constant annulment of the ego. Isn't that constant annulment of the ego, that, or at least the effort to do that, an outward action? Isn't it just considered an action like a religion?
So the idea in religion, it's about doing actions with your body. Right? It's about speaking certain things, moving your hands in a certain way, moving your feet in a certain way. That's what religion does. It basically takes the wisdom of Kabbalah and physicalizes it. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it doesn't physicalize it in a symbolic kind of way. It physicalizes it as if by doing actual physical deeds, you are doing spiritual actions.
But in that effort in phase 2 to bestow, as in doing altruistic acts for each other or for the group, we don't consider that as just outward actions?
No, because first of all, phase 2's actual actions, if you actually look at it, are very limited. It's more about disseminating the wisdom. It's about annulment. And it's about a general emotional support. Which all three of them, by the way, are very, they don't stick. So unlike with physical stuff, they can stick, right? If I give someone, let's say, his tefillin, and he puts them on each day, I feel good, like, because he's doing that every single day. But with general emotional support, if I give it to you once, it doesn't stick with you for life. If I make you feel good today, who knows how you'll feel tomorrow? And if I make you feel good tomorrow, how will you feel on the third day? So the idea is that also with annulment, if I nod to you today, who says I'm going to nod to you tomorrow? So the idea is that that's why phase 2 is very fleeting. And it doesn't have any substance to it. It doesn't last because it's not using the will to receive. Because anything that needs to stick, sticks in the will to receive.
But in the case, like you said, that the point in the heart first awakens in religion.
Yes.
So that means that even in religion, the person also has like this quality of wanting to be like the creator.
No. So the idea is like this. If someone's born into religion, that's not called religion. So if someone's, let's say, I was born into religion, that's not called the religious phase. So when I was born into a religious society, I was doing 1.1. And it's only when I got my point in the heart did I become extra religious. Right? I became ultra orthodox. Why? because I felt this gaping hole inside of me, point in the heart, and I didn't know what to do. So I went to my brother, and he said, oh, what you need to do is become more religious. I was already religious. He told me to become even more religious. Right? I haven't had a Mars bar in 4 years. So the idea is that what 1.3 is about is becoming extra religious. It's about using religion as a way to connect to the Creator. And all you know about at that phase is just physicality. So if the Creator made me in a physical situation, then probably the best way for me to connect to Him is by doing the physical things I was told to do. But now I'm doing it not because I was born like this. Now I'm doing it because I'm trying to make some kind of connection. I don't want to become the Creator. I don't want to be like the Creator yet. I just want some kind of connection to the Creator. And I'm going to do it through physical actions. Of course, it doesn't help. I always say if you're a failure at one phase, you move on to the next phase, right? So I was a failure at the religious phase. It made my life worse. And then I found Kabbalah, which is already the spirit. So we always said that the darkness is the 0.3 and the spirit is the 0.4. So the darkness is always, you're trying to be in your next state, but you're doing it like miserably. You're doing it the wrong way, or you're doing it in the opposite manner. And then you have the 0.4, which is already, you know, the way to get to the next phase. Like the way to get to a spiritual society is by learning Kabbalah. Phase 3 and 4. However, this still does not complete the entire vessel of reception, since Bina understanding is essentially Chokhmah wisdom, who is indeed transcendent, being a direct Pashtut expansion from Or Ein Sof boundless light. Consequently, only the Shorish root for the vessels of reception and the operator of the operation of the Kli vessel appeared in Bina understanding. Afterwards, that same Or Chasadim, light of mercy, that she extended through the power of her Gavut overcoming, extended from her once more, and some Ha'ara, enlightenment, of Chokhmah wisdom was added. This Pashtut expansion of Or Chasadim, light of mercy, is called Zeir Anpin, small face, or Chagat, Chesed Gvur Tiferet. This Or light of its Pashtut expansion also increased its desire to extend a new Shefa abundance that is greater than the measure of Ha'arat Chokhmah, enlightenment of wisdom, in its Pashtut expansion from Bina understanding. This Pashtut expansion is also regarded as two Bchinot discernments, because the Or light of its Pashtut expansion itself is called Zeir Anpin, or Vak, lower 6, while its Gavut overcoming is called Malchut, wisdom. This is how we come by the Eser Sefirot 10 emanations. Keter, crown, is Ein Sof, boundless. Chokhmah, wisdom, is the Or light of its Pashtut expansion from Ein Sof, boundless. And Bina understanding is the Or Chokhmah light of wisdom that intensified in order to increase the Shefa abundance, by which it gained Aviyut, coarseness. Zeir Anpin, which consists of Chagat Nehi, Chesed Gvur Tiferet Netzach Hod Yisod, is Or the Chasadim, light of mercy, with Ha'arat Chokhmah, enlightenment of wisdom, that expands from Bina understanding, and Malchut kingdom is it Gabrut Bet, second overcoming, to Chokhmah wisdom more than exists in Zeir Anpin. So the idea is that if we reach a point where the spiritual society starts to show its limitations, this is when we're understanding that basically we need to use our ego. That in phase 2 we thought, oh, the ego is bad, we don't need to use the ego, and we try to push it aside. At some point it basically fires back at us, both internally, that means spiritually, and externally in our physical life, where we strain our marriages, we strain our relationships with phase 1 people, we strain our business relationships, or it could be an internal. It doesn't have to be just external, it could be only internal or both. When internal is just you're feeling no spiritual success, you're trying everything, you're doing all the connection, you're going to all the lessons, you're trying everything, and nothing's working. You're still feeling spiritually at the beginning. And then what you understand is, okay, since I was made as a will to receive, I guess that plays a part in this whole path. And then what happens is that the light expansion that increases its desire to extend a new abundance that is greater than the measure of the enlightenment of wisdom. So the idea is you're basically adding the enlightenment of wisdom, which means you're adding in your ego, but in a small measure. Right? And that's called Chagat, it says. And then it's called phase 3, which is small phase, Zeir Anpin. And then, when you reach 3.3, that's when you get your intensive point in the heart, you understand, wait a second, I need to use my ego to the max. It's not enough just to have a bit of ego and continuing mostly doing what I was doing in phase 2. I have to focus all my desires now on using the ego to the max. The ego was created for something, and it was created to desire the quality of bestowal. So unlike in phase 2, where I wanted to bestow like the creator, which means that I'm still the will to receive, and the creator is the will to bestow, and I want to be like the creator, which means I want in the will to receive to bestow, which of course is impossible, but we try anyway. In phase 4, you understand, I am the will to receive, that's fine. That's the only quality I have right now. Why was I given this quality? So I can desire to receive the quality of bestowal. And then when I finally get the quality of bestowal, then I cross the barrier. So the will to receive wasn't just something to be created to push aside or just to go above. It was created precisely to desire the exact amount of bestowal that I need. And then I'll have two qualities. I'll have the quality of reception, which desires bestowal, and I'll have the quality of bestowal, which will bestow to reception, will bestow to the ego.
Why does it talk about the Sefirot if it's below the barrier?
So the idea is that the 10 emanations are basically structures, the building blocks. So it's showing how, even before the barrier, you've got roots of these building blocks. So you've basically got root phase, which is Keter, crown. You've got Chochmah, wisdom, phase 1. Bina, understanding, phase 2. Zer and Pin, phase 3. And finally, Malchut, phase 4.
Which the person gets more in details after crossing the barrier?
Of course. You're just constantly adding more and more details into things that you've done before. Think of it as getting 4 vessels, and as you advance, you're continuing adding new stuff into each vessel. So you're getting new understandings, what is Keter, new understandings, what is Chochmah, new understandings, what is Bina, what is Zer and Bin, what is Malchut. And you're getting to see them, those same structures, blocks, on each degree. So when you're in Adam Kodmon, which is after the barrier, you see them in one way. Then you reach Nikudim, which is 2.1 after the barrier, and you see them in a little different way. And then you reach Atzilut, which is 3.1, and you see them in a different way. And then you reach the world of correction, which is 4.1, and you see them in another different way, and so forth. So the idea is you're dealing with the same building blocks at all times, but your relation to them and the depth of them changes along the way. So the names are the same, the definitions change. Letters of structure. The 4 Bechinot discernments in the Ratzon desire are the 4 letters of Havaya, which are Kachabtum, Keter Chochmah Bina Tiferet Malchut. 31. The 4 Otiyot letters of the 4-letter name, the tip of the Yud is Ein Sof boundless, meaning the operating force in the thought of creation, which is to delight his creatures, namely the Kli vessel of Keter crown. The Yud is Chochmah, wisdom, meaning Bechina Aleph, first discernment, which is the actual in the potential that is contained in the or light of the Pashtut expansion of Ein Sof boundless. The first Hey is Bina, understanding, meaning Bechina Bet, second discernment, which is how the potential becomes actual, meaning the or light of Chochmah, wisdom, that became more of course. Vav is Zer and Pin, small face, or Chagat Nehi, meaning the Pashtut expansion of Or Chasadim, light of mercy, that came about through Bina, understanding, meaning it is Bechina Gimel, third discernment. The force for the performance of the operation, the lower Hey in Havaya, is Malchut, wisdom, meaning Bechina Dalet, fourth discernment. It is the manifestation of the complete act, the vessel of reception that is intensified to extend more Shefa, abundance, than its measured Pashtut expansion in Bina, understanding. That completes the Tzorah form of the will to receive and the Or, light, that clothes its Kli, vessel, being the will to receive that is completed only in this 4th Bechina discernment and not before. Now you can easily see that there isn't an Or light in the Nironim upper or the Tachtonim lower that is not arranged under the 4-letter name, being the 4 Bechinot discernments. Without it, the will to receive that should be in every Or light is incomplete. For it is this will that is the place and the measurement of that Or light. So it's basically using an example of the 4-letter name of Havaya, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, to show how this also matches up to these 4 phases and the root phase. So you've got the tip of the Yud, which is the root, and the idea is it's a tip to show that it's not an actual thing, so it's potential. Then it actualizes in phase 1 so that the Yud. Then you've got Hey, which is already a desire from the lower, so it's a full letter. Then you've got a vav, which is a thin letter, to show that, again, there's no choice in the matter. And then you've got, finally, a hey at the end, to show that, again, it's a desire of the person. So we've got the two heys, which are upper waters and lower waters, as we learned before. And you've got the yud and the vav, which are the light, which are phases that you have no choice in the matter. Letters represent impact on the vessels. The yot letter, yod and vav, of Havaya are thin, because they are the only potential bechinot discernments. 32. This might surprise us, since yud implies chokhmah, wisdom, and hay implies bina, understanding, and the entire tzmut essence of the oral light that exists in the Eser 10 emanations is in the Sefirot emanation of chokhmah, wisdom, while bina, understanding, zera and pin, small face, and malchut, kingdom, are merely levushim, clothings, compared to chokhmah, wisdom. Thus chokhmah, wisdom, should have taken the greater letter in the four-letter name. The thing is that the otiyot letters of the four-letter name do not imply and indicate the amount of oral light in Ein Sof boundless. Instead, they indicate measurement of impact on the kli vessel. The white in the parchment of the scroll of the Torah implies the oral light, and the black, being the otiyot letters in the scroll of the Torah, indicate the quality of the klelim vessels. Thus, because Keter crown is the only bechina, discernment, of shorish root, the shorish root to the kli vessel, it is therefore implied only in the tip of the yud. Chokhmah, wisdom, which is the force that has not actually appeared, is implied by the smallest among the otiyot letters, namely the yud. So what it's saying is that each of these letters are representing the impression of the vessel. So since the yud, the root, which is the tip of the yud and the vav, are smaller letters, those are representing that the desire from the person is small, and therefore the letters are small. While the hey, the double hey, are showing that there's an actual desire from the person. The person chooses to be in the spiritual society. The person chooses to use his ego to cross the barrier with. So therefore there are bigger letters. Short and long. Being understanding where the force is carried out in action is indicated by the widest letter, the hey. Zero and pin, small face, is only the force for the performance of the act, and is therefore implied by a long and narrow letter, being the vav. Its thinness indicates that the essence of the kli vessel is as yet concealed and remains in potential, and its length indicates that at the end of its expansion appears the complete kli vessel. Chokhmah, wisdom, do not manage to manifest the entire kli vessel in erit pashtut, expansion, for bina, understanding, is an incomplete kli vessel, but is the operator of the kli vessel. The leg of the yud is short, intuiting that it is still short, meaning it did not manifest the force in it, and through its expansion, the entire kli vessel. Malchut, kingdom, is also implied by the letter hey, like bina, understanding, which is a wide letter, appearing in its complete tzurah form. It should not surprise you that bina, understanding, and Malchut, kingdom, have the same otiyot letters, because in the Olam HaTikun, world of correction, they are indeed similar and lend their kelim vessels to one another. As the verse says, so they too went. Yes?
I think it would be beneficial to see the letters, actually, if you could draw them out and kind of go over it. I mean, I think because not everybody knows the Hebrew letters.
So as we can see here, we've got the letters of the Tetragrammaton. So we've got the tip of the yud, Keter crown, which is the point over here. We've got the whole letter, which is yud, chokhmah, wisdom. We've got the whole letter of hey, which is bina, understanding. We've got the whole letter of vav, which is tiferet, beauty, and then the final hey, which is malchut, kingdom. So you can see how we said that the yud is the smallest letter because it's basically the vessel in potential. We've got the hey because there's a desire from the lower, from the person to actually join the spiritual society. Then we've got the vav to show that he's basically forced to start using their ego again. So the idea, it's thin like the yud in the width, but it's got the height because it's already starting to show how the vessel is going to reach its full potential. And then you've got the final hey, which is basically the actualization of the first hey. So it's basically using the full ego to want to desire to become the creator. So unlike the first hey, which wants to, in phase 2, wants to become like the creator, the last hey wants to become the creator itself.
And the reason we're going from right to left is because in the Hebrew script, it's read right to left.
Yes. Thanks.
Also,
why don't you call the Vav Zeranpin?
Yes, it's a Tiferet and Zeranpin, all the same.
when we read the first slide, I think it was talking about the upper waters and lower waters, and just showing you how Bina and Malchut are both Hays, and you can see how they're, here's the upper water is Bina, and the lower water is Malchut.
Yes.
Right.
You could say this is a good visualization of what we just read. All right, I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.